Hi, this is Group 7 from CS 545. Today we'll be going over your DNA, their data, exploring data privacy concerns in consumer genetic testing.
Here's our group introduction.
So my name's Akshat. I'm a first year master's student here at U of M Dearborn. I'm an associate developer at Auto Owners.
Hi, my name is Shikha. I'm a second year master's student and I have 5+ years of software engineering consultant experience with various clients such as Ford.
So this is our agenda. We'll be going over a brief history, the rise of at-home DNA testing, the social impact, the problem, research focus, the current state, policies, potential solutions, and at the very end, a conclusion.
So, brief history. DNA testing was primarily used in the forensic science and clinical settings. So, example, criminal investigation, genetic disorder diagnostics, and parentage testing. Medical professionals such as doctors and forensic investigators conducted these tests and interpreted the results for individuals, limiting public access to DNA analysis. Depending on the type of DNA test, results would be kept with the state government, sent to the FBI CODIS database, or destroyed after the results are no longer needed. So here's a diagram that we created that further explains government-based DNA testing. So to understand it better, you, the person who holds the DNA, goes to a medical professional or an investigator for a scenario that you need DNA testing for. This could be parentage testing, this could be for a crime, and many other scenarios. That DNA gets taken from medical professionals and investigators, sent to the government. So this could be the state government, this could be the federal government, and then gets stored within a government database. Then the information and the results get sent right back to you. And this is pretty much in a closed loop. And this loop is protected by state and federal policies such as HIPAA and GINA that protect your data, your genetic data itself.
All right, this slide is the rise of at-home DNA testing. So in 2007, 23andMe launched the first direct-to-consumer genetic testing service. This allowed individuals to order DNA kits online and receive results without healthcare providers. This breakthrough sparked rapid growth in the at-home DNA testing market, fueling consumer interest in ancestry, genetic traits, and health risks. This slide will go over the social impacts. The popularity of at-home DNA testing has allowed consumers to explore their family history, reunite with lost relatives, and learn about their genealogy. This trend also sparks social media movements where people share discoveries of unknown relatives and has expanded DNA testing to include animals.
So here you'll see a couple screenshots of various DNA at-home DNA test companies. So for example, 23andMe and Ancestry.com are one of the biggest at-home DNA test kits. They are currently running 2 sales. As you can see, they're running a holiday sale. It's really popular around the holiday season for people to gift other family members or friends a DNA test kit to learn more about their ancestry, especially in the United States where ancestry and genealogy has been broken. So that information is really vital to people, and people really want to know, like, where did their ancestors come from, like who are they and where do I actually belong, and want to trace that. And then you also see there's other companies out there that also do the same thing. There are several companies that are selling pet related DNA tests. A lot of people adopt animals and don't know the background of their animal, so they want to know. So overall, this really shows that since the launch of direct-to-consumer at-home DNA test kits, it has really brought focus to users and consumers, like while they're at home, that they can find out more about themselves and their family history. Our problem statement. There's increased concern over the security and privacy of sensitive genetic data. Several data breaches at DNA testing companies have compromised sensitive user data. Unfortunately, there are minimal laws or policies protecting user data when using at-home DNA testing kits. With the growing popularity of these kits, fueled by social media trends, the privacy risks for millions of users continues to rise.
This is our research focused. Our objective was to examine the vulnerabilities in at-home DNA testing companies and the impact beyond the user. The scope of the project was to analyze real-world data breaches and identifying the absence of strong data privacy policies, and to provide potential solutions that could be implemented to protect you. So the next series of slides will go over the current state. It will be over data breaches and privacy concerns. This slide will go over data breaches. These three breaches were the most recent breaches in today's day. The first one was 23andMe. Hackers exposed the ancestry information and user data and PII of 14.1 million users. Second one was MyHeritage in 2018. They experienced a leak involving the email addresses and passwords of over 92 million users. The last one was GED Match in 2020. This exposed data used in law enforcement investigations, sparking ethical debates about the use of genetic information in criminal cases.
Here are the privacy concerns behind this. So, for one, sensitive information exposure. DNA data can reveal intimate details about an individual, including ancestry, health risks, and family connections, making it highly susceptible to misuse. Identity theft and fraud. When combined with PII, genetic data can be exploited for identity theft or fraudulent activities, posing significant risks to individuals. Potential for discrimination. Genetic profiles might be used to deny individuals or groups access to essential services such as medical care or employment opportunities. And lastly, privacy and consent concerns. Many consumers lack awareness of how their genetic data is stored, shared, and monetized, leaving them vulnerable to unauthorized use or data breaches. And we took this further by researching about how government and research institutes are harvesting at-home DNA test kit results. So government agencies and research institutes are increasingly interested in at-home DNA test results. DNA testing companies often share genetic data with research institutes and pharmaceutical companies, which raises ethical concerns about consent and unauthorized access. So for example, 23andMe collaborated with a pharmaceutical company like GlaxoSmithKline for drug development. Did users know about this? No. And next one is government agencies can request access to genetic data through legal means, through subpoenas. Additionally, the U.S. Department of Defense actually has warned military personnel against using consumer DNA kits due to security risks. Additionally, concerns arise over foreign entities like China exploiting U.S.-based DNA databases for espionage or genetic research. And public databases like GED Match are accessible to researchers and law enforcement, bypassing DNA testing companies. The last bullet point has been very big. There was a cold case that was solved using GED Match, and this kind of sparked a big ethical concern of how law enforcement was able to take data publicly available and solve a case, which is great that we solved a case, but at the same time they were able to pull more and more data on any individual, and this could lead to discrimination. Individuals could be targeted, and it's a huge concern. So here's a diagram, kind of like how we had earlier in our presentation, of what at-home DNA testing kind of looks like, the path of it. So you, the person and your DNA, takes an at-home DNA test service, sends it off, and it goes to some private database and then goes into the void. A lot of the information after you have sent it off you do not know about. You get a result back in a very pretty UI, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. I know a bit about myself, or I know a bit about my animal, or my family, or whatever it may be. But do you really know where that data got stored or who it went to? Many third party organizations are listed in the privacy part of the service that you're using, but you don't really know which third party organization. Third party organizations could be disguised as the government or a research institute.
So the next series of slides will go over policies. The first one was United States or federal and state policies, the Michigan policies, and the U.S. versus EU policies. So is this on this slide? Are there policies that protect us? So for federal policies, there are no policies on the federal level that specifically protects users from genetic information collected from at-home DNA test companies. Laws such as HIPAA and GINA do not cover at-home DNA test kits. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, does not mandate companies to practice safe and ethical data privacy and practices with genetic data. So for the state, several states have started issuing genetic privacy and data sharing laws to protect users. And for some examples is the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, which was created in 2020, and the California Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, in 2023. In Texas, they created the Texas Data Privacy and Security Act in 2024. So for some Michigan policies, Michigan does not have any specific law or policy protecting genetic information from at-home DNA test kits or services. Michigan policies focus on protecting genetic information collected by health insurance companies and preventing them from being used in discriminatory practices. This slide will go over the United States versus the European Union practices. The General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. The GDPR protects the privacy and security of individual user data. It requires companies to provide a detailed overview of how an individual's data is collected and stored and managed. With the at-home DNA test kits and services, this policy is in full effect. Companies must meet strict data protection requirements such as data minimization and storage limitation. On this slide, I'll be going over Canada's policies. In Canada, Canada has several policies on the federal and provincial level for genetic testing, but there are gaps when covering data collected from at-home DNA testing test kits. The first one is Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documentation Act, the PIPEDA. The federal privacy law governing private sector organizations and that handle personal data in commercial activities. In our case, at-home DNA testing. And for provincial privacy laws, each province has their own privacy laws to protect user data and what a company needs to do to inform their users. So on this slide, I'll be going over the policy summary. The United States lacks specific policies to protect genetic data from at-home DNA testing kits. Canada has a general genetic privacy policy, but it contains gaps, particularly regarding genetic data collected across borders, allowing companies to withhold disclosures. The European Union has the most comprehensive policy, ensuring cross border protection and enforcing strict ethical and data privacy standards for companies.
In the next series of slides, I'm going to go over potential solutions that we have come up with. I'll go over our policy framework, key points from it, and steps that you can take today to protect your data with genetic testing with at-home DNA test kits. So, our policy framework. Our policy framework establishes guidelines in the collection, storage, and sharing of genetic information from at-home DNA test kits. It provides ethical standards that will be used to protect individuals at the federal level. So from the top down, here are some key points from our policy framework. We're focusing on data privacy and ownership, data security and storage, limitations on third-party access, rights and protections for consumers, consumer education, ethical guidelines, and a federal policy enforcement. Here are some key recommendations from our policy framework. So we want to ensure individuals retain ownership of their genetic data with full control over its storage, sharing, and usage. We want to mandate encryption of genetic data both in transit and at rest, secured with a public and private key protocols. We want to prohibit unauthorized sharing or sale of genetic data to third-party entities. And we want to implement secure cross-border data transfer policies modeled after the EU standards. We want to impose significant financial penalties on organizations for non-compliance with genetic data privacy regulations, as well as we want to advocate for the enactment of the American Genetic Privacy Act of 2021 to establish comprehensive protections. This policy is currently with the House of Representatives since 2021. By pushing it through, there will be federal regulations and laws protecting genetic data and protecting data from at-home DNA test kits. Our policy framework is overall to help the user and protect their data from data breaches that have happened in the recent years.
On this slide, I'll be going over the steps you can take today. Currently, there aren't very much protection in the United States for at-home DNA testing. The first step is to research the company's privacy policies. The second step is to opt out of data sharing. The third step is to consider deleting DNA test results and to ask for samples to be destroyed from that company. The fourth step is to consult medical professionals for genetic testing. And the fifth test is to stay informed on data breaches from at-home DNA testing companies.
So in conclusion, at-home DNA testing can be fun and informative, but data privacy breaches pose significant risks. Your DNA is deeply personal, and sharing it without awareness can lead to misuse by third parties posing as trusted entities like government agencies or research institutes. This research aims to highlight the urgent need for stronger U.S. policies to safeguard consumer genetic data. Now, as we're coming close to the holiday season, it's good to be aware about gifts given of at-home DNA test kits. And also, hopefully you can take this research and educate your friends and loved ones this holiday season.
For any questions, feel free to email us, and thank you for watching our presentation.